Please, I am begging you, for the love of all that is holy and good and true, please stop using the word aesthetic incorrectly. First of all, hello, hi, and welcome back. This is Reese Grey Analyzes, and I am so excited that you decided to adventure with me today. On Reese Grey Analyzes, we look at creations and experiences in art, media, music, and even video games to explore exactly why we think the way we think, question what we believe, and learn something new. And just, if that something new is learning what the word aesthetic is, then that would be a good new. And before you come in my comments and you are like, okay, you hag, you don't know anything about aesthetics, okay? Let me be my cottagecore, dark academia little self in peace. And I'm not trying to take that away from you. I love it. It's literally adorable. I mean, look at this. Look at her. Oh my gosh. Adorable. I'm not trying to take this away from anybody. I love cottagecore aesthetic, but alas, this is Reese Grey Analyzes, and with a promise to be shallow and pedantic, we're going to look at aesthetics through the academic lens. There is a general recognition that there is a bias of aesthetics in digital spaces. For example, when we Google beautiful American, that can mean anything. That can mean anything, but what do we see? Yes, clear skin, lighter skin, brighter skin, and of course, women here. So that's a lot of bias. When we Google poverty, what do we see? There is a bias about where we expect to see poverty. For example, African countries, darker skinned people on average here when we look up poverty. An overall bias on how we think poor should look like. Why is that important to bring up? And with this democratization of information that is almost promised or expected, since we expect search engines to give us varied responses, varied information, and sometimes it's easy to slip into this false preconceived notion of unbiased search results or less biased search results. In your subconscious normalizes certain vocabulary that we use and can pigeonhole us and not allow us to have an open mind when different points of view and different perspectives are brought up. Which we can see with our prior experiment on certain imagery that pops up with certain words. Very vague words. And it can cause bias in our subconscious of what positive terms like beauty looks like, or what negative terms like poverty are supposed to look like. And thus, this has happened with the word aesthetic. Like, aesthetic is supposed to be something that is beautiful, or that we like to look at, that we aspire to be. However, aesthetic, this is a branch of philosophy, actually. And aesthetic is concerned with the appreciation of art, with the nature of art, with how things are made and how things people feel, the reactions that people get when they look at art. So the word aesthetics derives from the Greek word aisthetikos, meaning a sense of perception. So aesthetics is a reflection on art and how things make us feel. It's a reflection on culture and nature and imagery. All right. That's nice. So I'm going to bring up the most out-of-pocket thing I can think of. The most out-of-pocket example that I think will be interesting and cool. And we're going to be talking about the aesthetics of North Korean art. Surprise! And so I just want to check on this really quickly, because you hear North Korean aesthetic, and because the word aesthetic, how it has been popularized today via TikTok and Instagram, incorrectly, and so you think, oh my god, you're calling North Korea beautiful. It's a regime made off the backs of its citizens and awful human rights abuses. Yes, it is. I know. I'm in no way a North Korean apologist, and I just have to say that because I know that someone's going to misinterpret this. So do not knee-jerk in the comments and do not come from me. But a really good red flag here would be, well, what do you mean North Korean art? Isn't that propaganda? So now we have this conversation about propaganda versus art. And so when we talk about art an expression as a North Korean, you do have to recognize that North Korean art is produced and exported by support of the North Korean government. This is true. And to understand North Korean art, you have to understand North Korean philosophy and culture. And a big part of North Korean culture is the concept of juche. Juche is a political ideology. The term juche can be translated directly as self-reliance. And this self-reliance that they mean the importance of independence, the importance of self-determination, the importance of self-sufficiency as a Korean people in this regime, self-sufficiency and self-determination as a group of North Koreans militaristically, economically, and politically. Juche also emphasizes the leadership of a single, strong, charismatic leader. And so the first leader of North Korea is Kim Il-sung. Currently, the leader of North Korea is Kim Jong-un, his son, Kim Il-sung's son. And so Kim Il-sung is the OG, the original authoritarian ruler of North Korea. And this is important for their art, and this comes in a bit later. The articles where you can find these pictures will be linked in the description in case you guys want to look at it for yourself. So this is a 1930s of a Soviet socialist realism oil canvas picture. So this is important because this is the model for North Korean juche realism. So the model of North Korean juche realism was this Russian Soviet socialist realism. They were aligned politically, Soviet Russia and North Korea, both authoritarian regime. And so we can see bright colors, we see very family, togetherness, realist depictions of life. And then to compare with that art, here is a watercolor on paper. This is called The Year of Shedding Bitter Tears. It's a collectively painted work made to commemorate the death of the original leader, Kim Il-sung, who died in 1994 before Kim Jong-un took over. And so again, we can see a very realism, bright depiction of human emotion here. And these again are some more realist paintings. This one is called After Securing Arms on watercolor on paper, and this one is called Farewell on watercolor on paper. It's another Korean War narrative painting. And I can't believe that they are paintings. They really are so beautiful. The people who make these are incredibly, incredibly talented. So when drawing this fine line between propaganda and art in North Korea, we see things like this. We can think, oh, it's nothing but something that the painter depicted of a soldier lovingly caressing his face with the North Korean flag. Or you can think of it as an inner expression from an artist of an emotion of longing, of love, of hard work, of pride. And I do understand the intricacies of that. I do understand that that is very, very complicated, but trying to have an empathetic view of someone who is gifted with artistic ability, who was born into a regime where this is their opportunity to make art, the waters become murky between like appreciating art for how it is and what it represents. And I would love to hear what you guys think of it in the comments, because I really, really do know that this is a very complicated, complex conversation. But then it becomes really, really clear where artistry and mastery of art comes in, because you have the traditional chosunwa. So chosunwa is the ink wash paintings on rice paper that we've seen before, and these oil paintings that were inspired by Soviet era war paintings. And then you have things like this. This is from 2020. It's a glass layered art of dolphins and tigers. This method is called gemstone powder art, using glue and non-fading natural colors from stone so that light shines onto the painting in a very specific way. As you can see, this tiger, when light shines upon it, looks like fog with the layers and layers of grass. In this dolphin picture, it really looks like the painting is almost wet with how the light shines to really highlight the water in this picture. And when you take paintings like this from, 3 years ago and compare it to the oil paintings from 20 years ago, it really seems like there has been a type of progression in personal expressions, artistic expressions in this North Korean art. And also, what has helped the North Korean artists' ability to have more hands-on control of their paintings is that this is the current leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, Kim Il-sung's son. So he is not the original leader of North Korea. And so he has really removed himself from allowing artists to paint depictions of him, because really the only paintings that exist of the royal family, this North Korean authoritarian family, is the father. So in this scene, we see Kim Jong-un's Lexus. It got stuck in the mud while visiting a North Korean village. And this was repainted by a North Korean artist. And here you could see in the paintings right here that neither Kim Jong-un or his Lexus is in the painting. It is a painting of the villagers cheering Kim Jong-un on as his car in the distance disappears. So that tells a story of a love of a leader who defies the elements and through the mud comes to see the people of the village in these flooded areas. They're cheering on his conquest in service of the people. And so that is a lot. Like, that artist had to take a lot of liberty in order to share this story. This artists had to be very, very creative in telling their story. Really, it is realism, but based on the thing that happened, it's very interpretive. But then, of course, their art museums, they're covered with militaristic propaganda, really. So here we see armies, tanks, soldiers, and all of that. And these are all oil paintings from 2020 as well. So these pictures are a portrayal of the aftermath of the 2020 flood. Dozens died, thousands lost their homes in this horrible storm, and yet these paintings depict no suffering, but instead resilience. So that Juche philosophy. Here we see people looking determined at the reconstruction. Here we see on his box, it says 선물. So these are gifts from the Korean government given to the people who have suffered in this tragedy. And as you can see, like, it looks like some water and some food and some shoes for their children. Because unfortunately, with this type of regime, you're not allowed to show artwork of outright, like, depression or daydreaming of things changing for a future, but instead resilience and self-reliance throughout suffering that you are currently feeling now. It's very well known, widely known, that any type of criticism towards the government is disallowed. You're even not allowed to kneel or lay in front of statues in order to take pictures. It's a very, very stringent culture to show your respect to the regime. It should not be questioned in North Korea, which is an issue as far as personal freedoms of expression in art. That is something that we simply will not see, that we're not allowed to see. So things get depicted. We have to understand the philosophy of North Korean culture in order to get the most from appreciating their art. So this is a calligraphy painting, which was really, really interesting because from the South Korean eye, you would think that these brush strokes are crazy and ridiculous. They're not even proper brush strokes, and you might feel uncomfortable with the way that the brush strokes are created in this calligraphy. In a lot of Asian history, there is an art of doing calligraphy the correct way. It takes people years to understand how to correctly do these brush strokes. And with these, this is true art. This haphazard, this messy calligraphy, you can think of it as spirit of enjoyment. This is freedom to express yourself in this calligraphy that is absolutely unhinged. Like, looking at this, you can feel like energized, like, oh, wow, okay. This inconsistent craziness that the artist was allowed to just paint. And for those interested, there is a studio that holds North Korean art. It's called Koryo Studios, and this is in Beijing, China. So this has existed since 1993, and it is the only gallery that has an archive of film, an archive of commissions, fine art prints, photography, all from North Korea in their Koryo Studio collection. So it's basically, they tout themselves as the first Western gallery. This is in Beijing. I'm not totally well versed with the studio and like what it is, but it is very, very interesting and the only thing to exist of its kind. When we have these preconceived notions of disallowing art, sometimes what happens is that the very people who, at no fault of their own, are born into these authoritarian regimes, they're all of a sudden not welcome in international spaces. So then we have when North Korean artists were not welcome at this Australian art show. So they submitted 60 works and they were disallowed visas by the Australian government. And I will put this in the description if you guys would like to read it. But I think it's a really good jumping off point to have a discussion on the allowance of art from authoritarian regimes. It's such an interesting question. And then we also have, came across this study about North Korean amusement parks, which is so interesting and can be a video of its own. Please let me know if you guys would like a video on North Korean amusement parks. I feel like that would be so fun. So, yeah, with that, this video is much long enough. I hope you guys found something so interesting about this. Let me know your points of view on North Korean artistic expression, should it be allowed in international spaces, and the fine line between art and propaganda. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your cottagecore, enjoy your dark academia. I will not take that away from you at all. I myself am going to go buy myself a cottagecore dress and go thrifting. Yes, I will. And with that, all right, guys, love you so much. Bye!